Everybody. I am about to talk about quinoa. Here's some pictures of this fabulous seed. Quinoa. Quinoa, quinoa. It's really great stuff. Quinoa is a seed. It is not a grain, so it is approved if you are get some sprouted quinoa. Yes, duality peace, thank you for that. It is a seed, which is why you can sprout it. Of course, you can sprout grains too, but it's not considered a grain. So if you're paleo, you can actually have quinoa. And here's some great pictures of quinoa, some red quinoa, white quinoa. They come in different varieties, but they're all good stuff. So I'm going to flip the camera around and start talking. Hi, Dr. Meg Haworth here. I am a private celebrity chef, a nutrition strategist, and a wellness coach, and I help people heal themselves from their chronic illness with food and the power of the mind. My background is as a holistic psychologist. Hey Wade, nice to see you on the Periscope. My background is as a holistic psychologist and a nutritional chef. So I help celebrities stay thin and, hey there, I help celebrities stay thin and fit and trim for camera, but I also make sure that they eat food that tastes really good. So that's the skinny on that. But I want to talk about quinoa today. So one day I had one of my celebrity chef clients call me up from the road, and she said, Meg, how do you make your quinoa so perfect? What do you do? Please tell me. So I did. One of the key ways to make your quinoa perfect, which again, quinoa is a seed and not a grain. It's very high in protein. It's very high in potassium. Vitamins and minerals. It's actually it's considered a superfood, and which means it's a food that's very high in nutrition, and a food that we should be eating a lot more of. It's great to use instead of other grains like rice or wheat. Of course, couscous. Like if you have recipes that use couscous in, use quinoa instead, because couscous is bulgur wheat. So I'm gluten-free because I have to be. I'm allergic to it. But many of us need to go gluten-free because the food supply has been completely destroyed, unfortunately, by farming practices and by genetic modification of our wheat products. So anyway, that's another story. Let's talk about quinoa. So when I told my celebrity client that day when she called and said, hey, how do you make your quinoa perfect? What I do is I put a little less, instead of a 2-to-1 ratio of the quinoa to chicken broth. I usually use chicken broth or vegetable broth instead of water. So instead of the 2-to-1 ratio, I go maybe 1 3/4 cup to 1 cup of the seed of the quinoa. It's very important to rinse your quinoa because it's a saponin, which means it's a seed, and saponins get a little bitter. So if you've had quinoa and it was bitter and you didn't like it, rinse it before you actually make it. So again, 1 3/4 cup of chicken broth or vegetable broth, and then with the quinoa to 1 cup, and then you cook it for about 20 minutes. And sometimes if you cook it a little bit longer, it pulls a little bit more of the moisture out of it so that it's a little fluffier. And another good way to continue with its fluffiness is to pour it out into a mixing bowl, especially if you're going to use it for salads or things where you want it to be cool, or even mixing when I mix and saute vegetables and then put it on the quinoa. I'll put the quinoa in a bowl and let the steam evaporate, which also helps to make it a little more fluffy because it's starting to dry out a little bit, not dry out completely. So that really helps with keeping your quinoa light and fluffy as well. And quinoa, oh my gosh, I have so many ways to use it. I mean, you can use it as a breakfast cereal in the morning, so you can sweeten it up with a little raw honey and almond milk and berries and just things that you would put into your oatmeal. Nuts, I love pecans personally, and walnuts are really good as well. Another thing you can do, so you can have it for breakfast, you can have it for lunch, you can put it into salads. And of course, you're going to want to cool it down when you do that, unless you want the salad a little bit wilty. So the quinoa is great in a salad with oh, here's one of my favorites that I love to make for one of my clients. They love this one, where I'll make quinoa and I'll reduce some balsamic vinegar, like about a quarter cup of balsamic vinegar. I'll reduce it down till it's almost syrupy, so it's basically a glaze. And then I'll mix that in the quinoa, so it gives the quinoa a lot of flavor, and that's after I've cooked it in chicken or vegetable broth, so it's got flavor from that too. And then I'll put it in, I'll cool it down a little bit, and then I'll put it in with raw spinach, roasted butternut squash, and toasted pine nuts. Very simple, very delicious, and then you can mix it with all kinds of other things on your plate. Just add some avocado to it. Have it with chicken and pesto on the side. And anyway, there's all kinds of different things. Another favorite quinoa thing that I've done is I've created a quinoa with walnuts and apricots. So you just take the dried apricots and you chop them up, and they're kind of a pain to chop up because they're sticky. But when you get them in that quinoa and you get them with the walnuts, oh my gosh, it tastes so good. And then it's high in omega-3 essential fatty acids with the walnuts, and which quinoa actually has a good fatty acid profile as well. Yeah, so it's a superfood. It's good stuff. Let's see what other things. Oh, I'll saute a bunch of vegetables. I have a veggie nut quinoa recipe I've had a lot of my clients order, where I'll take asparagus and I'll chop that up in really small pieces with chopped onion. Red onion's always good in this recipe because it's a little bit sweet. It adds a little nice red color to it. And then I'll also add red pepper. So I'll saute those things together, and then maybe in some olive oil with some salt and pepper and garlic powder. And you can add any other spice too, like thyme, basil, cayenne, just things that you want to kind of spice it up and give it even more flavor, because I'm all about the flavors. Let's make them better. So then you saute those vegetables. When you're softening your vegetables and cooking them down a little bit, put some of that chicken broth over it, or vegetable broth if you're vegan or vegetarian, and then just let it cook down and the vegetables soften, and then it gives you a lot of concentrated flavors from the broth onto the vegetables. And then you just pour that over your quinoa that's been sitting in the bowl, cooling, and also releasing some of its moisture. So you mix that up, and it's really good. And then you add some chopped walnuts or pecans or chopped almonds, slivered almonds. So many things are already prepared and ready to go in the store. Another good one is quinoa with cranberries and pine nuts. Yum. Those two things are just delicious together, cranberries and pine nuts. So you can add those to a lot of dishes and make them even better. Golly, there's just so many things you can do with it. You can make desserts out of it. I haven't so much. I've had wonderful quinoa bars with chocolate. They're crunchy and they're really delicious. I'm not a huge dessert person, so when I do desserts, I tend to get them out somewhere. So, Cafe Gratitude, which is right down the street from my house. Yay, I'm so lucky. So anybody have any questions about quinoa, or do you guys have any things that you do with quinoa that you would love to throw into the chat thread? It's such a yummy thing. And it's so easy. Again, I want to just give that tip to always rinse the quinoa because it's a saponin, which means it's a seed. The rinsing helps to take that bitterness away. So, because some people don't like it because they think it's a bitter thing. So, anything? Anyone? Periscope. Periscope's so fun. Okay, so if there are any comments or suggestions or questions, I would love to have you guys be a part of my Facebook group. It's called Get Well Soon. And it's for people that are just really interested in health and preventing chronic illness. Because we have such an epidemic in this country with chronic illnesses. Hey, you're welcome. I got an awesome, very informative, you're welcome. Thanks. So I would love to have you guys come onto my Facebook group called Get Well Soon. It's for people with chronic illness, but also people who have persistent symptoms like migraine headaches or acne or rashes and things like that just won't go away. So I would love to be able to help you with that. We have great, highly intelligent people in this group that have a lot of wonderful things to contribute to help you along your pathway of eating better. So because our food supply in the United States it's in such dire straits and it's making us sick, I love to be able to educate you on what's in our food and how to eat things that are really delicious and really healthy without feeling like you're eating cardboard. Ugh, who wants that? I know I don't. And for a little bit of my background and how I got into this is I myself, I had irritable bowel syndrome, migraine headaches, chronic fatigue syndrome, ulcers, fibromyalgia. I had so many different problems, chronic sinus infections, lung infections, throat infections, ear infections. I was a wreck, and it really was due to what I've been eating. And then I learned how to eat properly, and this has been 20 years now. I was diagnosed with food allergies, gluten and dairy and sugar, soy, not in the form of soy sauce that's gluten-free. I seem to be okay with that. So I was diagnosed with those allergies 20 years ago. So I've been in this business for a very long time of looking at the different food trends and looking at the different nutritional trends that have come up. And I love to help people eat better. So I have 2 coaching programs. One is called Get Well Soon, and that's my big coaching program that helps you with healing yourself with food and the power of the mind. It's intensive one-on-one. And then I have another one called What Celebrities Eat. What is the name of your private Facebook group? Oh, it's okay. It's Get Well Soon. And you can always find me under Meg Haworth. It's Haworth. And I have a fan page at Dr. Meg Haworth where I post a lot of food pictures of things that I do in the kitchen for people to have ideas for what to eat for dinner, especially if you're gluten-free, dairy-free, organic. Organic's also a big thing I like to talk about. So, yeah, I would love to have you guys be a part of the group. I was talking about What Celebrities Eat, which is my other program, which is it's a food plan. So it's a lifestyle plan, food and lifestyle plan. That's also a one-on-one program to help you with healthy weight maintenance. I found that if you eat the right foods and the right quality of foods, your weight will go to where it should be naturally and stay there. And so that's what I help people do as well with that. And then I help them eat deliciously, so that you're not feeling like I don't feel good, like I just feel like I'm not getting enough good food or not enough food at all. So and then I help you also with mindset in that program. So anyway, does anybody have any other questions or any other thoughts they'd like to contribute about quinoa or wellness and health? Okay, well, I hope this has been informative and helpful for you, and that you'll go run out and get some quinoa and some chicken broth or vegetable broth and make some quinoa as soon as possible. It's really good stuff. High in protein, high in potassium, calcium. It's good stuff. So All right, thanks for listening, and have a great night.